Hey students, welcome you all to session 12 video of chapter Cost Sheet, Cost and Management Accounting, third semester BCom. The second problem on cost sheet will be worked out. It's a simple problem wherein we are asked to prepare a cost sheet as per the information given. The question is like this. From the following figures, prepare a cost sheet showing the cost per unit and the profit for the period. Raw material consumed 40,000, direct wages 24,000, machine hours worked 4,000, machine hour rate rupees 2, office overheads 10% of the factory cost, selling overheads rupees 1.50 per unit. Units produced 2000 units and units sold 1800 at rupees 50 each. So you are asked to prepare a cost sheet. Now, before preparing the cost sheet, we need to understand the question now. Now, the information given here, the number of units are 2000 units. So we have produced 2000 units. So for that we have consumed materials and direct wages, and in the machine hours in the factory the machine worked for 4000 hours, and for 1 hour, that is for 1 hour the overheads are rupees 2, which means the machine hour rate is rupees 2, which means that to run the machine for 1 hour the company has to incur rupees 2. Office overheads is 10% of the factory cost. So we'll have to first calculate the factory cost. Then based on that 10% of the factory cost will be the office overheads. Selling overhead is given 1.50 per unit. So it is 1.50 per unit sold. Number of units produced, you can see here 2000 units, and the units sold are 1800 units at rupees 50 each. Now you can see here 2000 units are produced and 1800 units are sold, which means that the some units, that is 200 units, are not sold. When they are not sold, what that it is the closing stock of finished goods which will be sold next year. So this year it will be remaining in the stock itself. So 200 units will be remaining in the stock, which is the closing stock of finished goods. Now the format of a cost sheet is given here. Cost sheet for the period is not given. If the period is given, cost sheet for the period ending. Units produced, the number of units 2000 units, and the columns you can see. So here particulars, units, total cost and cost per unit. First, we need to find out the prime cost. Prime cost is the sum of direct materials, direct wages and direct expenses. So in this problem, we have information about the direct materials and direct wages. Raw material consumed, 40,000, and the number of units you have right here 2000. 40,000 divided by 2000 units, cost per unit is rupees 20. Direct wages 24,000, number of units 2000, 24,000 divided by 2000, cost per unit is rupees 12. Direct expenses information is not given, only these two items are here. Now we can add these two items, that is raw material consumed and direct wages, we get the prime cost. So prime cost, the number of units you see 2000, total cost 40,000 plus 24,000, 64,000, and the cost per unit is 20 plus 12 rupees 32. To this we have to add the factory overheads. What is the information given? It's given that machine hours worked 4000 and machine hour rate is rupees 2. Machine works in the factory. So factory overheads 4000 hours multiplied with rupees 2, 8000, and number of cost per unit 8000 divided by 2000 rupees 4. So when we add factory overheads to the prime cost, we get the factory cost. So factory cost, you see, we are adding now 64,000 plus 8,000, 72,000. Number of units 2,000, 32 plus 4, 36 rupees. To the factory cost, we have to add the office overheads, administrative overheads. So office overheads, you can see the question here, it is 10% of the factory cost. Now factory cost is 72,000, 72,000 multiplied 10%. 10% of 72,000. 72,000 into 10 by 100, that is 7,200 per unit. 7,200 divided by 2,000 units, 3.6. Now we add this. So 72,000 plus 7,200, 79,200, and per unit cost is 39.6. Now, as I have already said, we have produced 2000 units and we have sold only 1800 units, which means that the stock is remaining, that is the closing stock. We have to adjust the closing stock less closing stock of finished goods. Now, how do you find out this? 2000 minus 1800, 200 units. This is the number of units. We need to find the value of the closing stock. So, value of the closing stock is equal to the number of units multiplied with the per unit cost of production. 39.6. This is important information. Per unit cost 39.6. Now 200 units multiplied with 39.6, 7,920. When we deduct that from the cost of production, we get the production cost of goods sold. So you can see here 2000 units were there and closing stock of finished goods 200, and we have got the number of units now 1800. So that you can see the question here, units sold only 1800. We have sold only 1800 units and not 2000 units. 79,200 minus 7,920. So here production cost of goods sold is 71,280. Per unit is 71,280 divided by 2039 point divided by 1800. 71,280 divided by 1800 is 39.6. Now we have to add selling and distribution overheads. What is the information given? Selling overhead 1.50 per unit. So how many units we have sold? We have sold only 1800 units. So 1800 units multiplied with 1.5, 1.5, 2700. 2700 per unit, it is 1.50. 2700 divided by 1000, or it is given directly here 1.50. 1. Now the total cost we have to find out per number of unit 1800, 71,280 plus 2,700, 73,980, and 39.6 plus 1.50, 41.1. This we have found out now, total cost. Next we know that sales. What is sales? Units sold. You can see here units sold 1800 at rupees 50 each. So sales is 1800 units at rupees 50 each. So 90,000 rupees. So 1800 multiplied with 50, 90 rupees. Now, number of units you can see here, it is 1800, 90,000 per unit is 50 rupees. Now we are finding out the profit. Sales minus the total cost. 90,000 minus 73,980. It is 16,020 rupees. So profit is the balancing figure 16,020 rupees. So the number per unit for profit is 16,020 divided by 1,800 units, 8.9 rupees. So once again we'll see the cost sheet from the beginning. Cost sheet, units produced 2000 units, materials and wages. The total cost is given. We have found out the per unit. We have found out the prime cost, which is nothing but the sum of direct materials and direct wages and direct expenses. To that we have added the factory overheads. We have got factory cost. To that we have added office overheads, that is 10% of the factory cost. We have derived at the cost of production, and we had adjusted the closing stock less closing stock of finished goods. We have found out using the current cost of production 39.6 rupees. So closing stock is 7,950. It is deducted, and now we got production cost of goods sold. Production cost of goods sold 71,280. To that we have added selling and distribution overheads, which is 1.5 rupees for 1,800 units. And it's not for 2,000 units because we have not sold 2,000 units. We have sold only 1,800 units, and we have found out the total cost. Then we know the sales. Sales is 1800 units at rupees 50, and finally we have found out the profit, the balance basic figure profit is 16,020 rupees and the per unit profit is 16,020 divided by 1,800 rupees 8.9. Dear students, if you have any doubts, please do ask me. Okay, thank you.